actually takes me back. This is history. The politics and science of the great century, now drawing to a close, may be said to culminate in two movements of high importance. We have recently created what is perhaps the most fundamental and important of knowledges, the experimental science of the conquest of the world will depend on the conquest of invisible atoms, unquote. Oh yes, I saw it. Oh, it's almost gone in most of the videos. Now, can I go on and fight and redo it again? Oh yes, I saw it. Oh, it's almost gone in most of the videos. Now, can I go on and fight and redo it again?
What's your feeling being here?
Well, is this a time machine or something? Because it actually takes me back. First of all, it reminds me of my childhood house, number 9 First Street. It was a Victorian building, carved wood inside the building. And so the switch and everything, I mean, this is history.
You open this window here, I mean, it's like fresh air. Back exit is wide enough. I mean, these are structures that were planned before they were implanted here.
They came here, they did a survey, and then they reported what they wanted to report, and then they planted these structures here. That they have survived for more than a century tells you something.
You said it was a time machine. So where are you being taken back to?
That is the question that generations of historians will have to answer. I can't pretend to have the answer to that question. But, I mean, we will ponder over this, because being in this structure, it begins, it's like a magnet. It brings home the reality of a past that is not past. Capturing the history of what has gone. In the context of today, making sense of what we have. And how we could utilize this to understand our history, preserve that history, is the challenge that these structures present to us. Because not many Sierra-Leoneans know about these structures.
In 1899, the Scottish doctor and researcher Ronald Ross took up a position at the new Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. The school had recently been established to combat diseases like malaria, afflicting the tropical and subtropical regions of the world, particularly British colonial territories. Ross would later write that it was the opportunity to continue his research abroad into malaria that persuaded him to move to Liverpool. He wrote, "Liverpool has close connections with West Africa, and I thought the businessmen there would not be slow to learn the great advantages which my methods of malaria prevention would confer on those countries, and on their plantations, factories and trade." Ross received approval from the school for a research expedition to Freetown, Sierra Leone, to further his investigation into the prevention and treatment of malaria. He was given free passage to Sierra Leone on a steamer owned by Alder Dempster, the main shipping firm between Liverpool and West Africa. Alfred Jones, the Liverpudlian businessman who ran Alder Dempster, was an early supporter of the school. At a banquet to welcome Ross to Liverpool, Jones explained his reason for supporting the school. Great service could be done by improving to help with those men sent out to all parts of the tropics on their commercial enterprises, where they knew they must be brought into contact with all kinds of fearful diseases. Ross's findings into the prevention of malaria in Freetown were published by the Liverpool School in a report in 1899. In a chapter entitled Houses for Europeans, Ross proposed building new residences on the hills overlooking the city at a safe remove from the breeding grounds of mosquitoes. Serious attention ought to be given to this question of the houses of Europeans in the tropics, he wrote. If employees are sent out to dangerous climates, it is the manifest duty of their employers to see that they are housed in a manner most likely to preserve their health. If the nation wishes to maintain colonies in intensely malarious localities, the least it can do is protect its servants as much as possible from the disease. These houses for Europeans, built to Ross's specifications, were prefabricated in Liverpool. They were then shipped to Freetown along with other building material, including cement donated by Alva Dempster. Construction began in 1903 on the summit of a remote hill overlooking the densely populated Freetown. This enclave, exclusively for European residents, would be known as Hill Station.
No, it's doubtful. Oh, the street where I grew up is here. First Street is here. Oh, because it's here. Duarte Street is missing. No, this log is incomplete. Will you tell the story? Let's tell the story. To me, coming from India, such a state of things appears quite inexplicable. Within half an hour's walk of the business part of the town, there are excellent sites for houses on the flanks and summits of the adjacent hills, while close behind the town there is a beautiful plateau, 1,000 feet above sea level and quite large enough to contain the houses of all the principal residents. I believe that the idea has already been mooted to connect this plateau with the town by light rail. Were this done, were the admirable sites now available properly employed, life in Sierra Leone would, without question, be much more pleasant, while it would almost certainly be much more secure. Well, this report is centered on how you take mosquito. It's unfortunate because in a context where you have two different categories of people, classified if you like on the basis of race, their relationship to power is different. And then you are confronted with a disease, an affliction that actually demands separation. How do you begin to do that within the context of race? It's a tough one. Because here is a place, according to Ross's finding, the mosquito inhabits ditches, shallow spaces where they could breed. Now, most of those species existed in the city. Some of them were up in the hills, but up in the hills, it was easy to tame them, to make sure that the mosquito does not multiply. But it means moving up there, you have to restrict the movement of the others. One of the arguments going up in the hills is not only about security, it was also about space, a conserved space. Space that was in a sense racialized, but it was also racialized within the context of leisure, away from the natives. It was kind of being up there and then looking down at the natives, whatever that means. And the kind of lifestyle there seems to be intersecting with class and race, and of course power. Those at the top, those who came from somewhere, and those who belong to a particular context within the framework of overall colonial domination, we are those who live at the top. I think this is Ross coming back from his. He made several trips to Sierra Leone before he eventually came out with his model. And here he's back from a trip and he's briefing the Liverpool Chamber of Commerce. Quote, "The politics and science of the great century, now drawing to a close, may be said to culminate in two movements of high importance. In politics, the great powers, somewhat tired of self-development, are endeavoring to extend their possessions and civilization all over the world. In science, somewhat satiated with their conquest over inanimate matter, We recently created what is perhaps the most fundamental important of knowledges, the experimental science of disease. Similar as these two movements may first sight appear to be, they are yet closely connected together. In the very last years of the century, a new link has been forged between them, and I believe that in the century now fast coming upon us, the success of the previously will be found to depend very largely upon our success with the microscope. The conquest of the world will depend on the conquest of invisible atoms, unquote. Okay, to the balcony. I see. Yeah. Well, you the canopy at all? Oh, yes, I saw it. Oh, it's almost gone in most of the buildings. Now, kind of go on, we fight and redo it again.
What's your feeling?
Well, it's this a time machine or something? Because it actually takes me back. First of all, it reminds me of my childhood house on 9th Street. It was a Victorian building, carved wood inside the building. And so the switch and everything, I mean.